Chimaev has called BS. And you know what? I'm really glad he did. I've been wondering what is going on with Chimaev. Like, the story that we get told versus what ends up happening are so drastically different. And nobody ever complains that I've always felt like, oh, they're all in on it together. Like, whatever it is, but they're all in on it, right? They're telling the story and kind of working together. You get the author and you get the editor and you get the publisher like any book ever made, and here you go. And then we all swear to it afterwards with our hand on a stack of Bibles that this is authentic. It's just the way it goes, but it started to feel that way. And all of a sudden, Chimaev called it out, and I was just really glad he did, just from a refreshing standpoint. Right? If we're operating under the theme of whoever is doing the speaking gets to say whatever it is they want to say and tell whatever truth they want to tell, I'm glad that Chimaev told his truth, because I've been wondering it as well. What I'm speaking about, in case I've lost you, go back to October 22nd on Fight Island, co-main event, top-ranked, undefeated, young man named Khamzat Chimaev takes on former world champion Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman was an extremely interesting opponent because Kamaru was the champion at 170 when Chimaev was getting his comeuppance, and everybody wanted to see that match right then. But it was decided that Chimaev did not yet have the experience to be in a world title fight. So the fact that we got to see that same pairing was relevant, not to mention Usman had a victory over the reigning champion of that weight class in Sean Strickland. So it's just a very appropriate match, which then got classified as a number one contenders match. When Chimaev came out on top, Chimaev remains undefeated and now has a victory over a guy who has a victory over the champion. Great. Match is done. Match is done. Not to mention there's a backstory. These guys were training partners. A lot of people who you know and trust watch those two train at one of the most significant gyms in our sport, Extreme Couture, under the watchful eye of one of the sport's most respected coaches, Eric Nissick. So all these pieces are in place. Promotion begins. Chimaev, through the media, talking about those workouts, talking about what he's going to do to Strickland. Strickland saying not so fast, and Strickland didn't flinch one bit. He did not try to get out of that fight or say he wasn't ready or didn't deserve it. So where do I sign? Everything is going along as it should. And it's going along at the same time as narratives that were nothing more than rumor in terms of we were never able to confirm them. Of everything from Chimaev was hurt to Chimaev for visa issues cannot leave the country. Has to do all of his fights, at least for now, in the part of the world where Fight Island is. So, without any kind of confirmation, as we're all moving along in that direction, we get an announcement that Dricus du Plessis will be fighting Sean Strickland. Everybody's just scratching their head going, what? Okay. So Chimaev finally spoke up about it. And he said, man, this isn't right. I was told I was in a number one contenders match. So I went and did the match. I had an extra motivation. I didn't ask you for money. I didn't ask you for card placement. I need incentivized like anybody, but I was incentivized by the fact that a victory, if I dig deep enough, if I train right, if I show up, if I do everything right, and I can beat Kamaru Usman, I will then get an opportunity to fight for the belt. I did all of those things. Where's my opportunity to fight for the belt? I just appreciate that Chimaev said that. And I can't fully take Chimaev's side, by the way. I mean, I must tell you that, like, there isn't lies within this industry. And I know you hear that a lot, and it could even appear that way. But the information that you're being given is accurate in that moment. One thing that you got to understand about this industry, and it creates a lot of opportunity, right? What goes around comes around. It's important that you understand from that perspective too. If you think you got slighted, down the line, there is an opportunity door that could open for you in that exact same position. What I'm talking about is nobody would have considered that Adesanya would need a number one contendership because nobody considered that Adesanya was going to lose. So the moment he loses, he automatically falls from champion to number one, which bumps whoever was the number. I mean, do you guys understand? And then the same thing goes with Chimaev. It's like, hey, look, when we tell you you're going to get a title fight, that just means you're going to be offered the title fight. If you call back and say, I can't do it, for instance, your hand is broken, you're going under surgery, I've still fulfilled my end of it. Now, that's very debatable, whether you want to accept what I just said or not. That's very debatable. If you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, you're not going to hold me back for an injury. You can't tell me that an injury hurts anything or slows anything down. Look at Jon Jones right now. All of a sudden, you don't have to accept what I'm saying is true. I'm just sharing for you. There's a debate. There becomes a discussion unless you don't bring it up. And so I appreciated that Chimaev did bring it up. I've never seen anything bother Chimaev. Whether it's authentic or it's part of the brand. The idea of anyone, anywhere, anytime. Any weight class, any way that you want to do it. That attitude is something that I have bought into. It's something that draws me to Chimaev. Makes me appreciate him. But finally seeing that something got under his collar and that he's pissed off and that he feels that he should be given a title shot that he earned, I appreciate that. I like that. I like a real competitor. And I have wondered how does that work? You know, what is that like when you're told you got a number one contendership and then you read in the media it's going to somebody else? Excuse me, guys, I got an eyelash here. I was put in an interesting spot where I was a number one contender. And the opportunity was going to go to Vitor Belfort. I had won the match. The prior to the match was said to be number one contenders match. But I didn't have to read about it. I got a phone call. Hey, look, some things have changed and here's what happened. And this is the direction we're going to go. And again, I accepted that and I was fine with it. But I wouldn't say that you have to. I won't tell you that you have to. There's ways you can push back. But from a PR and handling it, the relationship was fine. I was called. I was told. It was straight and direct. Was Chimaev. Did he have to read about it? I mean, Duplessis out of Strickland came out of nowhere. And those guys did such a good job of building that fight. And those guys are doing such a good job of building a rematch, or at least Sean is. I don't blame Dricus for wanting to move on. I don't blame that. But Dricus is not going to be able to move on. All of the headlines at 185 are stop the Izzy presses. Stop this is the match we want to see. My community page, over at YouTube. Guys, 113,000 of you, the actual base, not random people, 113,000 MMA fans weighed in. I realize that's just one poll, but I'm speaking to that poll. It was overwhelming. They wanted to see a rematch with Strickland and Duplessis. Now, Strickland is doing a great job. You guys are helping. You guys are saying, hey, wait a minute, Strickland won that fight 3-2. I saw something very different, but you guys say Strickland won that fight. And Duplessis is not going to be able to move on, even though he's not helping. Right? Like, helpful would be, hey, let's run it back. Let's do it again. Book a date. You say I headbutt you. I enjoyed headbutting you. Let's do it again. That would be very helpful. He's doing nothing. I don't blame him for that. But that's going to keep it around. If Duplessis wanted it to end, all he has to do is speak up and go in a different direction. That's it. The moment Duplessis speaks up and says Chimaev's next, whether he is or not, if Duplessis says that, the talk of Strickland Duplessis comes to an end. And Duplessis may be doing that in the direction. He could do it with Izzy. He could do it with a number of different competitors. He could step in, add a little something to the Robert Whittaker Paulo Costa fight by saying, that's the one I'm looking at. That's the one I'm going to give it to, whether he does it or not. If he speaks up and goes in that direction, that will end the Strickland talk. And I'm just sharing for you, those guys have done such a great job of building that match. And those guys, with your help, are doing a great job, whether it happens and comes to fruition or not, but they're doing a great job of building the rematch.